Hello everyone, Matt from Model Minutes here and welcome back to the workbench for another unboxing. This week it's the Revell P-51D Mustang in 1/72 scale. Join me in this video as I take a look inside the box and see what this kit is like. So for those of you who are followers of my channel, you might remember that this was the first build I ever did on my channel back in 2016. And back then I thought it was quite a good model kit, and I actually have it here somewhere. There we go. So this was the model I built back in 2016, exactly the same as the one inside the box here. And at the time, you know, I didn't know as much as I know now about modelling, and I thought it was a good kit. But as I go through this, I think we're all going to realise that I was a bit wrong. So, on the outside of the box, what have we got? We've got a rather attractive image of the aircraft as it's in a dogfight protecting the bombers over Germany or France, etc. during the Second World War. Down here we've got a product number 04148 and we've got some dimensions and things here. Flipping over to the back, we've got some generic information that Revell puts on the majority of their boxes. This edge has some safety information, and this edge has some information about the scheme included and the paints that you might want to get. On the edge of the box, it tells us this is a skill level 3, but as previously mentioned in my other Revell videos, the skill levels are merely related to the number of parts, so it doesn't really mean that much to me. This could be a really hard kit to build, but because it's got less than 100 parts, between 30 and 100 parts, so it could have 31 parts and therefore be classed as level 3. Not the best way of doing it, but that's the way the Revell have gone. So let's get the box open. And as usual, we're going to look at the instructions first. That's a little sort of generic safety information sheet that they put in every single kit. So we've got ourselves a nice little booklet. It's all in black and white. Information about the actual P-51, some safety information and tips on how to build your model. So turning over the page, we've got a key to the symbols that you're going to experience during the build. And then over here we've got the colour call-out system, which I absolutely hate. Just give us the paint numbers. That's already matte number 8 in the Revell range. Just tell me it's matte number 8 rather than giving it then another letter. I hate that because I have to keep flicking backwards and forwards to see which paint I'm supposed to be using. What I'll actually end up doing when I come to build this is annotating my own colours on the instructions. So let's fold it out. Oh, it just keeps going, doesn't it? So we've got everything on one page, more or less. So starting off, we've got a sprue map. I love having a sprue map because it helps you easily identify where your parts should be. Then we start assembling our model. So we've got our pilot figure in the cockpit area. We add the propeller to the sort of retaining block. Then we put the assembled cockpit inside the fuselage and add our tail wheel. Glue the fuselage together and make sure you put the tail unit, it sort of slides between both of them and gets sandwiched in. Engine exhaust and sort of the air intake on the bottom. Join the wings together, add the fuselage. You can have landing gear raised or lowered, so those are your two different options there. And then we come down to add the drop tanks and add the canopy. So not a very complicated build, 15 steps in total. So down the bottom here we've got our painting instructions. So there's only one decal scheme included in this kit, and it's for a P-51 in 1945. So looking at that, being in black and white, not a fan because it makes it a bit more difficult to try and determine what, you know, each different shade of grey actually represents. Having these printed in colour makes it much easier to then determine what you should actually be painting it. For example, here we've got green and sort of olive green, and they're very similar shades of grey, so it can be easy if you're not paying attention to get the wrong colours on your model. But generally it's a fairly simple paint scheme, being silver overall. We've got some D-Day stripes on the bottom and then stripes on the wing, and then the green and the khaki on the top. So generally instructions not too bad, up to the standard of normal sort of releases from Revell, but not my favourite. Up next, let's look at the decals. So we've got a nice small decal sheet, but it's got really well printed transfers on there. You might be able to notice there's sort of a white residue on the top of them. I'm not really sure what that is or why it's there, but you can just rub that off. That'll just go away. These are printed to a really nice quality, even the small text being quite legible, and the registry of the different colours is really good as well, and there's no sort of pixelation or anything, so these should go onto the model really well. They do feel a little bit thick as I run my thumb over the top, but if these are the exact same ones as the ones I used on the previous model, I won't expect any issues with them. And as you can see on my model that I've already built, they went on absolutely fine, and I didn't have any silvering or anything with them, so I'm not expecting these to cause any issues. So finally, the main event, the bit we've all been waiting for, the plastic sprues. Contained within this plastic bag you get, what do we get? 1, 2, 3, 4, and a clear bit as well. So we get 4, well, 2 big ones and 2 little ones, which are all moulded in this grey plastic. It's quite smooth, it's a little bit soft. Actually, I correct myself, it's not grey, it's ever so slightly silver. There's like a metallic silver shine to it. It's not like a good silver, it's like grey with silver speckles in it, but you know, it's not terrible. So if you didn't want to paint your model, you could just leave it as it is. Let's have a quick look at all these parts. So on this sprue we've got the 2 upper wing halves and the lower wing. And as you can see, there's a lot of raised details, lots of rivets on there, and there is a bit of flash around the edges. The plastic, as you can see, is really flexible. So it's not the best quality plastic in the world. We've got a copyright stamp there, which is on the inside, which is better than not. But you'll notice there's no sort of landing gear detail that you get on other kits. Moving on to the next one, we've got our fuselage halves. There is the smallest hint of internal detail there. We've got our landing gear covers, which are quite thick and basic. We've got our landing gear legs, which are the same. Everything on this kit is generally quite thick and basic. Control panel has a representation of detail. The pilot figure there is not terrible, but obviously I've seen better. I would be tempted to use him. You could probably get away with that one. The wheels, they've got that big hole in the middle, so I presume that they're designed to freely rotate if you wanted them to. And then moving on down, we've got the outside of the fuselage, and again, raised details and rivets. Moving on to, what's this one? Drop tanks. So we've got some drop tanks, again slightly crudely moulded, but generally not terrible. We've got the sort of 2-half moulding lugs on the other side, and then the tailplane, which has this feature of being installed like with the fuselage across the top, sandwiching it, and then the rather clunky propeller with sort of this lip around the outside there, which is not great. So those perfectionists out there would probably want to sand that off. And that's the cockpit floor, I'm pretty sure. Clear part. Let's have a look at the clear part. So the moulding of the clear part is quite good. There are some small scratches in places, but the plastic is overall quite clear. We've got moulded canopy frames on the outside there, which will make painting a little bit easier to do, but there is a bit of flash around the outside, particularly on the back, which will need cleaning off. And that's it. That is the kit. So generally, on the whole, quite an old looking kit. And I think when we go into that in a minute, it will make sense why. Let's recap. So we've got 2 big sprues and 2 little sprues moulded in this sort of grey silver plastic. It's not the best quality plastic in the world. It's a little bit flexible. One thing I forgot to mention is it doesn't feel greasy. It doesn't feel greasy at all. So there doesn't appear to be much mould release on this. So you probably don't need to wash this before you assemble it. We've got one clear part. The clear plastic is really nice, but there is quite a bit of flash. Possibly the best part of the kit are the decals, which are really nicely printed. Maybe a little bit thick, and they did have that white residue, but generally they look to be really good, so I don't think I'll have any problems putting those on the model. And these black and white instructions, which, although they'll do the job, I'm not a fan of the fact they're black and white. All of that comes contained within this rather attractive box. And how much would you be looking at paying for one of these kits? Well, at the moment, when this video was made, you'd be looking at paying around the £6 mark here in the UK. So, not necessarily the cheapest kit in the world, but this sort of brings me on to my next point. There are other kits from other manufacturers in this scale which are considerably better. Here, for example, we've got the Airfix P-51D Mustang, and it is probably just a touch more expensive, seeing as prices have gone up in recent years. So if we put that side by side with the other one, eagle-eyed viewers might be able to notice that there is a little bit of a scaling difference between the P-51 on the right, which is the Revell one, and the P-51 on the left, which is the Airfix one. And also you can see that the Airfix one on the left has considerably better detail. It's all recessed, panel lines are much better, and it's not as clunky. We've even got internal details, whereas on this one we haven't, so in the landing gear areas. So yeah, but then people are going to go, oh, but that's not fair because you're comparing a new kit against an old kit. So I'm a big fan of model kit companies telling us when the kits were tooled. And the fact that Revell have not told us when this kit was tooled or made any effort to tell us that this is a vintage model means that I'm going to compare it against modern day kits. So when was this kit tooled, I hear you ask? This model dates from 1963. Yep, 1963. So if this was in the Airfix range, for example, this would definitely be considered a vintage classic. But in the Revell range, it's just a straight up normal P-51 as part of their normal range. So you go into the shops and you see the P-51 from Revell on the shelf for about £6. You see the Airfix one and possibly even the Academy one for £8 or £9. You think, oh, well, it's the same model, essentially. I'll go for the Revell one. But then you take it home and you realise that it's just, well, it's a bit of a clunky kit, if I'm brutally honest. So some of the things I said in my previous video about it being, quite a good kit and well, I mean, it's going to be fun to build if you like building these things, but when you compare it to the fact that there are other models out there from other manufacturers who, for similar prices are going to be much better, yeah, ultimately I was wrong in what I said. This is not a good kit in comparison to those. The reason why I have got another one, even though it's such a bad kit, was to do a bit of a comparison build. As some of you might know, the channel has recently passed the 25,000 subscriber milestone. And to commemorate this, I have created my own play button for 25,000 subscribers. You don't normally get a play button until 100,000, but because I've been playing around my 3D printer recently, I thought I would have a go at designing my own one as a little bit of a vanity project. So I made this one, painted it all up, and yeah, so at some point this will go on my shelf as a sort of souvenir to this event. But because we've hit 25,000, and I'm so grateful to all of you who've subscribed and become part of the community, it was decided that we would do a comparison build. So I've got the old one, and I'm going to rebuild it using my latest skills and techniques that I've learned and see how much better I can make this model. So if you'd be interested in seeing that, make sure you've clicked that subscribe button and turn those notifications on so you don't miss that. I'd like to give a quick shout out to my patrons on Patreon and my channel members on YouTube for the massive support they give the channel. Let me know down in the comments what you think of this kit. Do you think that I've been quite fair, or do you think I've been pretty harsh on it? Bearing in mind, I've already built one, and when I built that one I was like, yeah, it's quite a good kit, and now I'm like, nah, it's not so good. Plus, if you want to see anything new, any other suggestions that you've got for models you might like to see built on the channel, let me know. And finally, I think the last thing to say is a massive thank you to you for watching this one, and I'll see you on the workbench again next time.